Welcome to the Airbnb Diaries, where every stay can be the beginning of a real nightmare. Prepare to hear Raphael's story, a man who rented an isolated Airbnb and discovered that some presences are invisible, but never alone. My name is Raphael. I work as a video editor, and after months of exhausting routine in the big city, I decided I needed some time away from the chaos, the noise, the artificial light that never rests. That's how I found that house. An Airbnb lost in a small town in the interior of Minas Gerais, surrounded by dense forests and almost permanent mist. The pictures on the site showed an old, charming house, but with a dark edge. The reviews were few, but mostly positive, or so I thought. The trip took hours. The landscape gradually changed, the sky became heavy, and the cell signal disappeared almost half an hour before arrival. The narrow dirt road seemed to swallow my car into the fog. When I finally saw the house, twilight had already taken over the sky, tinting everything grey and dark blue. The house was exactly as pictured, wooden, with large windows framed by old curtains, and a porch creaking under the cold night wind. The host, Silas, was waiting on the porch. Tall and thin, with deep eyes that seemed to avoid mine. He didn't smile or offer a handshake, just said, "Only you this week. No neighbors. If you need anything, don't call me." It sounded strange, but fatigue and my desire for solitude made me ignore that phrase. I entered the house and was greeted by a strong smell of old wood, dust, and something I couldn't identify, as if the house had swallowed time and kept a secret. The lights were dim, coming from a lamp with an old fabric shade, and the silence was almost tangible. In the middle of the room, a piano covered with a dusty cloth seemed to wait for someone to make it sing, but the melody never came. I dropped my backpack on the floor and looked out the window. Outside, the trees seemed to bend into the mist, hiding secrets. I went to bed trying to understand that strange feeling, like I wasn't really alone. I went to bed early, too exhausted to think. I tried to sleep, but the house's silence was so heavy it felt suffocating. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to a strange noise. Heavy, dragging footsteps echoing from what seemed like an upstairs. But the house had only one floor. My heart started racing. I stayed still, trying to listen more. The sound stopped. I got up for water and, walking down the hall, noticed a picture frame that had been crooked was now perfectly straight. I swear I didn't touch it. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I went back to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. In the following minutes, I heard low whispers, inaudible, coming from corners I couldn't see. I felt like something, or someone, was there. The next morning, my head was pounding. The suffocating feeling from the night before still stuck to my skin like cold sweat that wouldn't dry. Sunlight timidly entered the window, and the house's silence felt heavier. That's when I found it. In the middle of the bed, there was a wooden box, old, with carved details worn by time. I hadn't put it there. My heart sped up and my hands trembled as I opened the lid. Inside were yellowed letters, old photos of people who seemed to have lived there, or at least passed through, and some scribbled notes, almost illegible. I started reading the letters. They all told the same story, a presence, an invisible guest, who never truly left anyone alone. They described sounds, shadows, objects moving by themselves. Some said they felt a constant, cold, empty gaze. And there was a warning in one of the last letters. He doesn't like to be ignored. He learns from you. He copies your steps, your words, your silence. And when he's ready, he comes in. Reading this stole my breath. I needed to leave, but something inside held me back. That night, my mind wouldn't stop racing. I got up to go to the bathroom, and when I looked in the mirror, my reflection didn't blink. I blinked several times. It stayed still, fixed. Then, to my horror, it smiled. Slowly, crooked. A smile that didn't reach the eyes. The voice from the mirror was low, rough, almost a whisper that froze my bones. Now it's my turn to be real. I backed away from the mirror, stumbled, nearly fell. I ran to the bedroom trying to calm down, but that image of the smiling mouth burned in my mind. Fear took over. The feeling of being watched grew unbearable. I closed my eyes and tried to escape that thought, but the smiling reflection followed me in every shadow, every corner of the house. I spent the night awake, sitting in the corner of the room, trying to convince myself it was all in my head. But that feeling, that presence, wouldn't leave me alone. When the first ray of sunlight hit the window, I heard a whisper, almost inaudible, like someone saying my name right next to my ear. But I was alone, or at least that's what I wanted to believe. The house seemed to breathe with me. Every creak, every shadow, every curtain movement seemed to send a message, a warning I couldn't decode. Desperate, I tried using my phone, but the signal was still gone. Silas had vanished without a trace. Fear turned into panic. I was trapped. That morning, I decided I had to face it. I went back to the hidden door in the hallway. I tried to force it, pushing with all my strength. Nothing. Then, for the first time, I heard a voice. Whispered. Harsh. So close it seemed inside my head. You won't leave. My body froze, my breath caught. It was him, the invisible guest. For hours I stood there, listening to silence filled with his presence, until something in the house changed. The light started flickering, the temperature dropped, and a shiver ran down my spine. At 3 p.m, I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't dare turn around. The sound got closer, until I felt a cold touch on my shoulder. I screamed, but the sound got stuck in my throat. I ran for the front door, trying once more to open it, but it was like the house had a will of its own. The locks tightened, the windows sealed shut. Then, suddenly, everything went silent. Just the sound of my breathing. In the hallway mirror, I saw a figure standing behind me. The same shadow I had seen on the TV, smiling. It wasn't human. I felt the presence enter me, a sensation of emptiness and deep cold. In a last desperate act, I grabbed the box of letters and threw it to the floor, scattering everything. A bright white light filled the house. When I opened my eyes, I was on the porch, next to the road. The house behind me looked intact, but silent as a tomb. I ran, without looking back. Today, as I tell this story, I still feel that something from that house came with me. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, I see a different gleam in my reflection, a smile that isn't mine. Silas never answered my messages. The Airbnb is still listed online, available to book. But now you know. Some houses hold guests who never leave, and they're always watching. If you liked this story, subscribe to the Airbnb Diaries, leave a like, share, and tell us in the comments if you've ever experienced something like this. Until the next story, and be careful where you decide to stay.